new season of Alone in the Wilderness kicks off with gorgeous contestants who look more like they're on a holiday, crafting lavish log shelters right from day one. All contestants arrive, dropped off at specific spots by the production team via boat or plane. As soon as they land, they begin recording their journey, using their survival skills to endure. The last contestant standing will win a grand prize of £100,000, nearly €1 million. All contestants are dropped along the river's edge one by one. This is Canada's northern wilderness, teeming with 3,000 black bears, cougars, wolves, moose, and other dangerous animals. Naomi, facing this barren land for the first time, focuses on survival rather than the view. I must admit, this season of Alone in the Wilderness is quite impressive. The first contestant is a real knockout. If Naomi flaunts her figure like Camilla from the internet, it would definitely make viewers drool. Naomi heads deeper into the forest. She wants to find a place to build a temporary shelter. In the forest, Naomi sees a huge handprint. Her first thought is that it's not a human handprint. The trees here are broken, and there are various footprints. It's clearly a beast trail. Different animals frequently come here to drink from the river. Naomi, 26, is divorced and raising 4 kids. Naomi, a fashion designer, is out of her element here. She's roaming with an axe, clearly in need of a seasoned partner. She hears some sounds but isn't sure what they are. Naomi looks around, hoping not to encounter any monsters. Alice has already picked a spot and begun her shelter. They all had 9 days of training and testing beforehand. This gave them some basic survival skills in the wilderness. It's clear that Alice is also a beauty. She hears sounds nearby too. She tracks the noise, praying it's not a black bear. Thankfully, it's just a large bird rustling in the trees. Ruth initially considers checking out the area. The water looks dirty and needs boiling before it's safe to drink. While the women focus on building shelters, the men are still wandering aimlessly. Ruth, a 28-year-old novice. She's always been a city girl from the UK, with zero wilderness experience. Just 10 minutes in, and she's already drenched in sweat. She has to rest for an hour before planning anything. Meanwhile, Mike is scouting the area. He knows he won't find Tom and Jerry here. After all, this is Canada. He might run into a big black bear. He found a great spot for a shelter. Mike, 49, is a craftsman. Building a shelter is not difficult for him. So far, Mike's survival skills seem to be much better than the previous contestants. The novice is only here to experience the wilderness, not to win. The environment here is quite good. Mike decides to build a shelter here. Naomi has already found a place to build her shelter. She doesn't welcome visitors, but there are sounds all around. Just by licking her lips, Naomi might get some guys excited, but she's not trying to seduce anyone. She's just thirsty and wants to drink water. Naomi saw fresh moose tracks by the shore. A moose was bathing in the river, leaving Naomi unsure whether to be thrilled or terrified. Skilled folks would see it as prey. The unskilled would view it as a wild beast. Meanwhile, Mike is chopping wood, planning to build a luxurious log cabin. To Mike, a tough person never whines about their surroundings. With trees around, he can build anything. Mike's breath suggests he skips brushing his teeth. While chopping wood, he accidentally injured himself. His leg got a gash from the axe and needs stitches. It's only been 4 hours since the start, and he already needs to call a doctor. The more arrogant he was, the unluckier he is now. This injury will surely mess up Mike's start. I never thought he would choose to quit. Quitting after just 4 hours is really embarrassing for the UK. He set a record for the quickest exit ever. With only 4 hours in, it's clear from the few contestants we've met. The show indeed found a replacement contestant. Another beautiful woman appeared. Pete, 47, is about the same age as Mike. He showed up in the evening and had to quickly get a shelter up. The others were also starting to set up their tents. Nights here are scary, with wild animals all around. A rope in the middle, weighed down by wood on both sides. A temporary tent is done. Ruth has also built her shelter and started a fire. Right now, Ruth is leading the pack. Her only worry is the next rain. She's also the only one with a bow and arrow. In terms of hunting ability, Ruth is once again far ahead. Whether she can catch prey or not, having a bow and arrow, it's like having 5G, she's just way ahead. Ruth heads into the jungle to hunt, determined to win this competition. She constantly worries about money, a feeling we all know too well. She then notices 2 ducks by the shore. She quickly grabs her bow and fires. She hits a duck, but the arrowhead falls off, letting it escape. This is the British take on Alone. British-made stuff is practically junk. Ruth sits by the shore, deep in thought. If she had used a Chinese-made arrowhead, that duck might have been dinner. Around 7 in the evening. Zion still hasn't found a place to build a shelter. This challenge is pretty crazy for a 19-year-old. Zion, the youngest contestant, plans to build a tripod shelter by the shore. Though he's brave, I doubt he'll last till the end. If he makes it halfway, that would be impressive. Zion admits the longest he's ever stayed in the wild is not days or weeks, but just a few hours. Got it, he's a rich kid here for the experience. To drink water in the wild, you need to start a fire first. Right now, everyone's trying to get a fire going. Fire means they can boil water, stay warm, and keep predators at bay. Even with fire starters, their lives aren't that simple. Their skills are oceans apart from what's needed. Fortunately, they get a fire going and boil water first. Meanwhile, 24-year-old Eva still can't start a fire and feels hopeless. This 24-year-old girl is already feeling hopeless after failing the first challenge. In the Canadian wilderness, wolves and bears get more active at night. Contestants huddle in their shelters, peering into the pitch-black darkness. A shiver runs down their spines. Some still haven't set up their tents. Wolves are already howling. None of them are used to these nights. Naomi, who looked so pretty during the day, now has a pouty face at night. Do you know why? By day, she's a beauty. By night, a pouty princess. Meanwhile, another stunner is unexpectedly sleeping in a camisole. A black bear appears outside her shelter. The girl holds a weapon, ready to defend herself. It's now the second day. 10 contestants remain. Everyone made it through the first night safely, though they didn't sleep well. But they managed to get some sleep. Pip wakes up complaining about the noise and the abundance of mosquitoes. Lauren wakes up and heads to the shore for some coffee. It's murky, but it makes for a decent breakfast. Naomi said last night was her scariest ever because a black bear showed up near her shelter. To stay safe, her first thought wasn't to move, but to build a wooden shelter. She started constructing a wooden frame next to her tent. While she was building the shelter, she heard noises nearby. She knew it wasn't human and had to overcome her fear. She's tougher than I expected. She built the shelter quickly and confidently, which is impressive. Javad got to work on his shelter while Tom set up by the shore. Alice, however, was having a hard time. The frame she built was shaky and unstable. She didn't know how to fix it. Anyone who knows how to build a shelter could see the problem right away, but Alice kept pondering. This girl is indeed a bit clumsy. She took 2 days to craft a fork from twigs and used a big log as a beam. Building one frame took her half a day. At this point, I was ready to chuck my phone tripod at her. She failed to build a shelter and just sat by the river, blaming the coach for useless training. If she's that bad at surviving, she should just leave. Alan, already hungry on day 2, was focused on finding food. Alan searched the jungle, hoping to find something to eat for breakfast. The inner bark of these pine trees is edible. Many survivalists have eaten tree bark, though it tastes terrible. Fortunately, Alan enjoys it. Meanwhile, Eva still couldn't start a fire. She hadn't had water for over a day. If she didn't get a fire going soon, she might have to quit today. Determined to get the fire going, she spent hours by the shore trying, but still couldn't manage it. Luckily, she managed to get the fire going at last. I was so relieved, I thought she might give up. Eva was overjoyed when she finally got the fire started. At that moment, she felt capable again. With the fire, she finally had water to drink. Though it tasted terrible, it was very refreshing. Ruth ventured to the shore at dawn, hoping to find food. She discovered an abundance of cattails. She gathered the cattails and took them back to her shelter to cook. They smelled like potatoes when cooked. She tried a bite. This stuff was so disgusting it almost killed her. It smelled like potatoes, but tasted like a sore. Zion was still scouting for a good spot to set up his shelter when he stumbled upon some fresh black bear droppings that oddly looked quite appetizing. He finds a spot with fewer bear tracks and decides to build his shelter there. After half a day of chopping, he only has a few pieces of wood. Chien is exhausted and needs a break. At this pace, and with his stamina, building a shelter might just kill him. Suddenly, he hears noises nearby, which frighten him. He wants to prove himself, but right now, he's as scared as a kid. Naomi wraps up her tasks and heads to the river for a bath. Her figure is stunning, absolutely lived up to my expectations. Caught a glimpse of everything, both the expected and unexpected. If you're low on data, I'll censor it. Meanwhile, Alan is still deciding where to build his shelter. The jungle is full of underbrush. Although it's messy here, it might form a natural barrier. Alan decides to build his shelter here. Naomi returns to her shelter after her bath, and his shelter is progressing very quickly. She looks even more stunning after her bath. Pip has been lounging around all day. As night approaches, the contestants grow increasingly nervous. Wolves howl outside the shelters, and by 4 in the morning, animals pass by, scaring the contestants who try to reassure themselves. This is truly frightening. What threats await them next? Can't wait for the next episode's update. The new season of Alone in the Wilderness is here. Naomi, a remarkably skilled woman, shines, and a top hunter manages to catch a stray squirrel. Following a hearty barbecue, it's day 3 with 10 contestants left. Tom wakes up early, grumbling about his drafty shelter. He says he slept like he was in a wind tunnel. Meanwhile, Naomi, who built a solid shelter, had a good night's sleep. Naomi is the first to build an almost perfect shelter. Pip kicks off his day with a pot of tea for breakfast. As expected, age brings wisdom in health. Pip heads into the wild to explore. He spots animal tracks on the ground, guessing they belong to wolves, not bears, highlighting the dangers of the Canadian wilderness. Xian recounts his night, saying there was a loud noise around 4 a.m., with branches breaking nearby. He suspects a bear was around, which made him feel scared and anxious. He already misses his family. His dream is to be an explorer, but he tripped over a branch. He's unsure how long he can stay here, feeling quite unhappy. He ponders by the shore, unsure of what to do. With such mental fortitude, he dreams of being an explorer. Maybe he should explore his home bathroom first. Javad wakes up early to gather berries in the wild. Berries are all he can find, and after just 3 days, he's starving, even though there are plenty of them. Eating them doesn't fill him up. Foraging is only a short-term solution. Hunting is necessary for long-term survival. Naomi is also out looking for food. She finds many wild fruits that just need peeling to be edible. But this doesn't help much. Alan is also struggling with food issues. There are plenty of berries outside his shelter, but he thinks they're too small to be filling. It's just a waste of energy. He tries to find more valuable food, but berries are still the best option. Alan starts collecting berries. On the ground, he finds a fresh pile of steaming dung. He guesses it's fox dung. Ruth wakes up and heads out with her bow and arrow to hunt. Everyone had hunting training, but Ruth is the only one who brought a bow, meaning almost no one else has hunting skills. This suggests Ruth's odds of winning look good, making the rookie challenge seem like easy money. Ruth continues hunting in the jungle. He spots numerous burrows and hears squirrels chattering in the trees. Now, it's all about Ruth's archery skills. After picking a good spot, Ruth aimed and shot an arrow, but it missed a vital spot, leaving the squirrel still clinging to the tree. Ruth decided to chop down the tree, but the squirrel vanished when it fell. Ruth's luck is terrible. The ducks took off, the squirrels vanished, and Xian sat by the shore all morning. He pondered deeply. With bears nearby, it was too risky. He realized he couldn't hack it and called the crew to quit. Honestly, he just treated this like a camping trip. He didn't get to show any skills, he just starved for 2 days and then quit. When he left, he boldly claimed he learned a lot. He claims he'll never forget this, but I'm speechless. I bet once he's home eating fried chicken, he'll forget he even camped for 2 days. There are still 9 contestants left. Ruth can't hunt, so she's scrounging for berries in the jungle. What gear did these rookies bring? Couldn't they have chosen fishing tools? I bet they packed shampoo and body wash too. They likely brought shampoo and body wash. Meanwhile, they're all starving despite the abundance of prey. Yet, they're all starving like fools. Anyone with basic hunting skills could snag the £100,000 prize here. Old Lai is gearing up to fish by the shore. Guess these contestants aren't completely clueless, they know the river has food. But given his fishing skills, catching a fish is mostly luck. This time, 9 contestants brought fishing nets as their survival tool, and now Eva plans to use a net to catch fish too. For newbies, fishing with a net is simpler than using a rod. Naomi's ahead of the game with her shelters done, so she's got it easier than the rest. Naomi actually chose to weave her own fishing net. What was she thinking? She didn't bring a net but brought rope to make one. Sometimes the contestants' choices baffle me, but making your own net can be smarter. Just check out Eva's flimsy one. It's like a throwaway. If you're handy, a homemade net is better quality. I totally underestimated Naomi initially. I initially thought Naomi was just a pretty face, but she's incredibly capable. She's also in her final year of college. She discovered she was pregnant, which really shocked her. Wow, do foreign girls not need a dad to have a baby? It seems like foreign girls take pride in having babies. Naomi is actually weaving a huge fishing net. If she can finish it, it'll be better than the pre-made nets. Naomi finished it fast and even added weights. Alan decided to make his own fishing net too. These newcomers are surprising me, and maybe they're tougher than I expected. Once their nets were done, the contestants began setting them up to catch fish. Did they plan to do this all at once? After setting the nets, they just had to wait for fish. Meanwhile, Pip was scouting for a permanent shelter spot. Alice was nearly done with her shelter, which surprised me since she was just making a wooden fork yesterday. Now, she has a shelter up. She even planned to make a small bed inside. The girls this season are pretty impressive. I feel like we might get a female champion. After all, women can endure hunger better than men. Ruth was starving and resorted to eating ants, which she said tasted like lemon. She joked she'd need 1,000 to feel full. After that, Ruth went hunting again, and found a squirrel she had hunted in the morning. What luck! This squirrel made Ruth the first successful hunter. Even though the squirrel was small, it was enough to make a pot of soup. Ruth had food, But her shelter wasn't finished. She roasted the squirrel directly on an iron pan. After days of hunger, this roasted meal was truly enjoyable. If she could catch a squirrel every day, that would be great. Ruth became the first successful hunter, while others had no luck. Laura wasted half a day fishing with no luck. Naomi's net was empty too, leaving her hungry in her shelter. Her stomach ached with hunger. Is she just going to sit there? Why not go look for berries? Laura was just sitting around, assuming others had already gathered plenty of food. What a lack of confidence! Pip was making a spear because there were too many wolves around. Having a weapon would make things safer. Night fell, and it was a dark and windy night. Naomi sat in her shelter and heard wolves howling again. They were scared every night. Laura's shelter had 2 openings. Right then, he was petrified of what lurked outside. Wolves were definitely nearby, and branches crackled. This had Laura's adrenaline skyrocketing, turning every night into a horror show. Now it's day 4. Naomi woke up early, desperate to pee after holding it in all night out of fear. Meanwhile, Tom was chopping wood daily to build his shelter. Chopping wood every day was wearing him out. He switched to making fishing tools, realizing he'd starve if he didn't. He had the fishing line, but needed bait. I was shocked at how crude it was, like he thought fish were. Tom headed to the shore to fish, but after some fumbling, he tangled the line so badly that even Jesus would struggle to catch anything. The line was really tangled. Tom just sat on a rock, enjoying the breeze. Laura didn't sleep well last night. The wolves nearby kept him from sleeping peacefully. If he's so scared, why not improve the shelter? These contestants aren't just a bit silly, they're really silly. Today, Laura started building a permanent shelter, but the frame he made was also unstable. Don't they know about triangular bracing? It took him a year to make a tripod. And even that frame took all his effort to make. As a girl, of course, she had to have a good cry. The more she cried, the more it showed how tough it was. Ruth, after eating a squirrel, felt full of energy. He began constructing a shelter, which is no easy task. Each log weighs dozens of pounds, some too heavy to move. It looked like he was building a wilderness villa. Dude, you only ate 1 squirrel. No need to waste so much energy. After half a day, he hadn't even finished 1 wall. The ones he did finish collapsed. How annoying. After his tantrum, he had to keep working. Ruth kept placing the logs. Who knew they'd collapse again? I really felt for those logs. On the surface, it seemed like they were trying to mess with Ruth. In reality, they were trying to make me laugh. Tired from working, he cooked the rest of a squirrel head. He ate every edible part of the squirrel, even gnawed on the bones. After finishing the squirrel head, it was like having dinner. He cleaned the squirrel head so well that no meat was left. Ruth was still hungry and wished he could gnaw on it again. On the 5th day, Naomi was exploring near the shelter when she smelled something awful. It turned out to be an animal carcass, which made her nervous about the surroundings. At night, Naomi heard footsteps behind the shelter, but she had no idea what it was. Everyone stayed on high alert every night, straining their ears to catch any sound around them. They only slept when exhaustion overtook them. By day 6, Alan was still struggling with his net. Naomi, on the other hand, completed hers in a day. The difference between people is astonishing. At this point, she really wished for a woman to give her a massage. Wishful thinking, right? Laura was also starting to feel bored and wanted to find some fun. Was she thinking of making wooden toys like contestant Camilla? As the days went by, Eva found a huge jawbone on the shore. What kind of animal could this bone belong to? The jaw looked very much like a fish's. If it really was a fish head, just how big was this fish? Tom went to the shore to fish. Though he hooked a fish, the line broke as he reeled it in. These fish are tough. Meanwhile, Pip began constructing his shelter. He bathed in the river daily, which made him feel great. Meanwhile, Laura made no progress and cried almost every day. She seemed to be proving how tough things were, hoping the show would just give her £100,000 to go home. On the 8th day, Alice was drinking coffee in the morning, with sexy lingerie nearby, mainly for knee support. She was more provocative than a fox. Alice survived on water every day. Was she here for survival or a wilderness weight loss program? Alan spotted a black bear across the shore. Good thing it stayed there. He might have bailed immediately. Laura, on the other hand, threw in the towel. Her shelter frame was built but never completed. She couldn't hunt for food and staying there was just suffering. Might as well quit. These rookie contestants seemed to be here for camping, not survival. They had no skills at all. Now, only 8 contestants were left. The beautiful Naomi kept improving her shelter and even added a bed. Pip began constructing his shelter, and the frame was done in a few days. Eva kept at her fishing net daily, hoping to catch a fish, but never succeeded. Tom's fishing efforts always ended with the fish escaping, which really dented his confidence. Javad was also fishing, but had no luck either. The one doing the best was Ruth, who successfully hunted and ate squirrel meat. A large eye appeared in the sky, signaling the approach of winter and even scarcer food. Rose has been slowly building her shelter over the past few days. Alan, unsuccessful in fishing, has resorted to making traps. He plans to hunt other small animals, setting as many traps as possible in hopes of catching some food. What challenges will they face next? Stay tuned for the next episode. This is the best survival show ever. The girl bathing in smoke is so captivating, the guys are going crazy. Everyone's having a barbecue. Each contestant got super lucky, catching big fish and enjoying tasty grilled fish. It's day 8, and all 8 contestants are still in the game. At dawn, Alice preps for a smoke bath at the shelter's entrance. Lacking a pot to heat water, she decides to dry clean with pine needle smoke and strips down. She uses the thick smoke to dry clean herself. I've seen smoked fish plenty of times, but a smoked girl is a first for me. Whether it's dry cleaning or wet cleaning, the goal is to get rid of the original smell. Alan is out exploring early in the morning, but he has no idea how far he's walked, and his sense of direction is terrible. Worst of all, his short-term memory is really bad. Even with the sun, Alan can't tell east from west. He's been lost for ages and is now extremely thirsty. If he stays like this, he might die here. Ruth's pants are about to fall off. If this continues, there's no need for pants anymore. Eva's starving too, her skin practically glued to her bones. She's definitely shed some pounds here. In just 8 days, she's hit her dream weight. But this is a survival show, and rapid weight loss isn't ideal. After all, a few pounds are nothing compared to that 100,000 pounds. Most contestants have noticed they've lost a lot of weight. Naomi has been eating berries, but really wants fish. It's spawning season, and the Mackenzie River is full of fish. If they can find a way, the contestants will have a grand feast. Naomi checks the fish nets every day. Sadly, no catch today. Tom's gearing up to fish. He loves fishing and caught a dragonfly for bait. With years of experience, Tom finds fishing easy. He thinks fishing is easy, but he hasn't succeeded once here. Ruth is also planning to fish. He collected squirrel guts from the past few days, which are now very smelly. Among all the contestants, only Ruth made a fishing rod. It's crude, but it works. Hopefully, he can reel in a big fish. Alice is crafting her own tools too, despite her fishing experience. But her tools look like a hammer. Why are they so ugly? Because she has no crafting skills. When she finally started fishing, I realized her years of fishing experience were all nonsense. Catching fish is a whole different game. She could hardly cast a line, and her bait was a mess. Eva's net isn't catching anything either. She crafted a tool and headed to the shore, hoping to find clams. Eva is searching the water for clams, but all she finds are empty shells. While everyone else is hunting for food, Alan is still lost and struggling to find his way. His situation is really bad. Not having water is the most dangerous part. For others, survival in the wild is a drill. But it looks like he's really trying to survive. I hope he finds his way before the show ends. Luckily, he finally made it to the river and felt reborn. Alan got so pumped at the riverbank that he went a little nuts. Ruth caught a fish, but it wriggled off the hook as she reeled it in. I must admit, she's got terrible luck. Ducks, squirrels, and now fish. Every bit of meat just taunts her before vanishing. Ruth knows how to hunt, but luck isn't on her side. Eva's empty-handed too, and now she's questioning her abilities. She wonders if she's really made for this. Sometimes, a good cry says it all. Alan spent the whole day lost, wasting all his time. When he got back to the shelter, the first thing he did was drink water. Everyone here is a rookie, so let's just say he spent the day taking a long bathroom break. Whether it's fishing or anything else, the result is the same: no success. Alice also realized she can't get food here. She never thought she'd want to fish so badly in her life. To get a fish, Naomi is saying she's a bit evil. This batch of contestants has a lot in common, probably their survival skills. Pip just drinks pine nut tea every day. It's now drip drip wine day, and they wake up at 5 a.m. The sky is just starting to lighten. He believes the early bird catches the worm. I can't believe this guy. He actually believes the early worm gets eaten by the bird. He doesn't trust his fishing skills, so he wakes up at 5 a.m. to fish. He must be really determined to eat fish today. He finally got a bite, but it slipped off the hook again. The fish here have sharp teeth. Tom kept at it for 2 more hours. This time, he finally caught one. With his past experience, he successfully reeled it in and used a hammer to reason with it. Tom finally caught a pike. After 9 days of hunger, he finally had a fish feast. Alice also just had a feast, but only in her dreams. It doesn't matter where you eat, the feeling's the same. Being full is another story. Along with Alice dreaming, Alan also had a dream. He dreamt he walked into a church and saw a priest with 8 arms, and then his head exploded. Pip woke up early and started packing his things. He's moving to a new shelter today. Apparently, there are animals around his current shelter every night, scaring him to death. After arriving at the new shelter, Pip set up a tarp. It was still pretty basic, but at least it was a wooden frame shelter. Ruth kicked off his day by wishing on his fishing rod, hoping for a catch. These contestants have tried everything, from early bird tactics to chatting with their rods. In the end, it's all about luck. Ruth headed to the shore and cast his line. Right away, he got a bite. He carefully reeled it in and finally landed the fish. After so many days, he finally caught a fish, becoming the second contestant to do so. This fish gave Ruth a huge boost of confidence. Javad ventured into the jungle to check his traps, hoping for small game. He noticed many burrows along the way. He set up a few more traps and spotted a grouse nearby. He planned to sneak up on it with a stick. Unexpectedly, the stick backfired and he got hit instead of catching the grouse. Meanwhile, Pip began setting up his own hunting traps. If he didn't get some protein soon, he might have to quit. Pip made a bird trap, hoping to catch a grouse to eat. He set the trap nearby and left it to the prop team. Naomi wasn't very skilled at hunting. He had to gather fragrant fruits to get by. He also found some grass seeds nearby with a bit of starch. If he gathered enough, they could make a meal. Naomi roasted the seeds over the fire, even though it was just 2 skewers. They were tastier than roasted meat. Alice had no luck with fish and blamed the big hook. She switched to a smaller one and gave it another shot. With over 20 years of fishing experience, she'd never been this unlucky. Still, no fish. At this point, she really wanted to catch one. Sitting by the shore, she was burning a fire and cooking air, starting to question her life. It was now the 10th day. This fish really hates getting caught.
Right this morning,
this fish has dodged a catcher forever.
The longest it's ever taken him.
Naomi's situation was also very bad. He couldn't get any food at all. What he wanted most now wasn't fish or food, but for the show to give him 100 grand to go home. His mind was sharp like a martial arts master. I've got a secret martial arts manual to sell him. Ruth put the fish on an iron pan to fry. This was his second successful hunt. In extreme hunger, catching a fish. He savors the fish, and it gives him great hope to continue surviving here. They say when you're hungry, you have only one worry. But once you're full, all sorts of worries flood in. He remembers the car accident that injured his leg and left him in the hospital for 8 months. Back then, he felt like he'd lost everything. At the shelter, he found a bug and played with it. The bug, dubbed Black Friday, is Ruth's buddy. Pip checks his bird trap from yesterday, but of course, it's empty. Ironically, a grouse was right by the shelter, but Pip chose makeup over a bow and arrow. Let him starve, he deserves no pity. Alan is starving. He hasn't pooped in 5 days, too weak to even try. He's heading to the river to fish again, but luck isn't on his side. But luck wasn't on his side. Eva is exploring the jungle and discovers wild berries for the first time. She goes to the shore to check her fish net and finds a wild duck caught in it. She's thrilled and spends hours by the shore, admiring the large duck before finally pulling it out. It's plenty to satisfy Eva. Why is she crying over a duck? Just be glad you have food. The duck is really fat. If she makes smoked duck and duck bone soup, it could last her 7 or 8 days. She cuts the meat and bones into small pieces and puts them in a pot to stew. Is she really going to eat it all at once? That seems wasteful. If she does, she'll be starving again tomorrow, after 10 days without food. A piece of roast duck leg tastes heavenly. Alice also has good news. She finally caught a fish while fishing. She worked hard, but the fish was tiny. While others catch big fish, Alice caught a fish barely bigger than a hare. I can't believe this woman, but even a small fish excites Alice because she successfully got food. It's now day 11, and Naomi is the only one without food. Although he has a good shelter, not having food isn't sustainable. With the weather getting colder, he needs to gather lots of wood daily. But he feels really exhausted. He goes to the shore to check his fish net, and this time he finally catches a fish. It's quite big. It's big enough to feed Naomi for days. He sits by the shore, enjoying the fish. After 11 days of hunger, it tastes amazing. Alice enjoyed fish for dinner last night and felt fantastic this morning. Meanwhile, Alan woke up early. He mentioned dreaming about poop. Seriously, this guy. Anyway, he went fishing and finally got lucky. Alan finally snagged a big fish, and it really pumped up his confidence. Seriously, is everyone having grilled fish this episode? Why is everyone suddenly so lucky? Ruth snagged a huge fish on her second try, and it must weigh over 10 pounds. They quickly kicked off a bonfire party in the shelter. What surprises await in the next episode? Stay tuned. How do you manage menstruation in the wild? See how this incredible woman does it. She boils her underwear and takes a smoke bath. Curious why? She explains it all. The new season of Alone is here, and contestants have built stunning wooden shelters. They fish so much their hands ache, enjoying grilled fish daily, with $1 million prize at stake. Would you join this wilderness survival challenge? It's day 12, and 8 contestants remain. Javad slept well last night as the black bears have started hibernating. With the bears hibernating, it's much quieter and Ruth is in high spirits. She caught plenty of fish, and being well fed definitely helps. Pip spotted a lot of ducks by the shore and wished he had a bow and arrow. Those ducks wouldn't be flying so happily if Pip had a bow and arrow. Naomi's shelter is currently the most beautiful. She had a fish feast yesterday and caught plenty. Today, she got her period and went to the shore early to wash her underwear, fearing it might attract black bears. She even boiled her underwear to remove the smell. Being well fed gives you the energy to be a bit neurotic. Alan, who also ate fish yesterday, is in a much better mood. His plan today is to build a permanent shelter, which requires a lot of wood, but gathering wood is physically demanding. Today, we're focused on building shelters, but tomorrow we might be starving again. We can slowly improve the shelters, but fishing is a daily necessity. Right now, all the contestants are relying on fishing to survive. Alan, who caught a fish yesterday, has become more skilled and quickly caught another one today, a 10-pounder that will last him a few days. Alice is extremely hungry. He caught a fish, but it was only the size of a thumb. He went back to the shore to try fishing again. If he doesn't catch anything, he might have to quit the competition. His confidence is dwindling. Javed is in the jungle. Javed found a bird egg in the jungle, but can he even eat it? Instead of getting food, he's chopping wood, which isn't sustainable. He's gathered a lot of wood, but what's his plan? Ruth is the most comfortable right now. After having grilled fish for breakfast, he plans to take a bath. Ruth has enough fish to sustain himself, so he focuses on enjoying the place. With no one around, he roams naked. Alice checked the fishing net trap and surprisingly caught a fish, which made him very excited. The small fish he caught last time wasn't satisfying. But now she's finally caught a big one. This fish is quite large, and Alice starts grilling it as soon as she returns to her shelter. The smell of grilled fish fills the wilderness, promising a hearty meal tonight. Naomi isn't feeling well and plans to rest early. In the middle of the night, she hears footsteps around her shelter again. The bear is wandering outside, but the shelter gives her some sense of security. Already feeling unwell, the bear's presence makes it impossible to sleep. On the 13th day, Naomi says she was very scared yesterday. He thought the bear was eyeing him hungrily. Although it sounded narcissistic, it was actually ******. Ruth fetched water from the shore every day, taking selfies and posting them on social media. Eva had a roasted duck meal after being hungry for 3 days. Alan woke up and started acting crazy in the shelter, which was a normal reaction for the contestants. Naomi planned to continue improving the shelter today. The nearby black bear was terrifying, so the shelter needed to be reinforced for safety. Despite eating little, she worked a lot. She planned to build a door for the shelter. With this door, Naomi's shelter would be completely enclosed, making it safe even for a striptease inside at night. She wouldn't even be afraid to dance naked inside. After eating her fill, Alice had the energy to start improving her shelter too. Though it's just a frame made of small sticks, it's covered with moss and pine branches on the outside. On the ground, she found a beer bottle. Alice planned to use the beer bottle as a bear alarm. She would tie it up and hang it. It seemed a bit unnecessary, though. Ruth stored the extra fish meat underground to prevent animals from stealing it. While the fish stayed fresh, why didn't she just make smoked fish to preserve it? Ruth took the fish to the river to clean it, and it looked very fresh. She cut off the heads and tails and made a pot of soup. The fish tasted great these days, and no one got tired of it. There was also a lot of fish hanging in the shelter being smoked. Ruth eats some of the less tasty parts first, and she's currently the most comfortable. With enough fish, her living conditions are quite decent. This pile of smoked fish can last a long time. Naomi has been improving her shelter because winter is coming, and the shelter will be crucial. She built a garden and decorated the exterior beautifully, with a very comfortable wooden bed. It looks so nice that I want to move in with her. Naomi fills the gaps with moss to prevent drafts in the winter. Tom has also built himself a very nice little cabin, a shelter that could be lived in long term. Such a shelter could really allow someone to live here long term. It seems that as long as there's food, the competition for the championship is quite fierce. Eva also started showing off her shelter, which is just a tent filled with wood and a sleeping mat in the middle. It looks pretty weird, almost like a crematorium. He doesn't plan to build a wooden shelter because it's too exhausting. Alan heads to the river daily for fishing, and his luck keeps improving. Today, he landed a 10-pound fish, enough to last him 5 days. He brought it back, made fish stew, and smoked the rest for preservation. Though it's not a huge amount of meat, Alan is one of those contestants who can turn things around. Only he and Ruth are smoking fish right now. I still can't figure out how he manages such a big fish in a pot, but as long as he can eat it, it's fine. Ruth, meanwhile, is steadily improving her shelter and isn't shying away from hard work. With enough fish to eat, Ruth found a strange piece of wood and decided to use it for a tattoo. Sometimes, I really can't understand the contestants' actions. She said she tattooed many little fish on her hand. Eva saw dark clouds gathering in the distance from the shore. They are about to face their first heavy rain here. Bad weather is the ultimate test for shelters. Those with well-built shelters will be comfortable. As the night brought strong winds, those with tents were destined to suffer. The wind shook the trees so much it felt like they might fall, and every contestant was on edge. Only the contestants with wooden shelters remained unfazed. On day 14, Alice heard wolves howling last night, and Tom woke up to find the area around his shelter in disarray, with many trees fallen nearby. This was where his temporary shelter used to be. Luckily, he moved quickly, or he might have died there last night. Eva's shelter is not practical at all. If he continues like this, he definitely won't last until winter. If he wins the championship, I'll give everyone in the comments 100 grand each. Just kidding. Meanwhile, many trees have fallen around Ruth's shelter, and squirrels are everywhere. Ruth plans to set traps, hoping to catch some for food. Even though she has plenty of meat, she's still hunting diligently. That nearby squirrel might just end up in her trap. Javad is having the toughest time. Everyone else is eating fish, but he hasn't caught any. Javad is the only one who hasn't caught any fish. He's been hungry for 14 days, and his hooks keep getting bitten off. He's starting to question his life choices. While some are thriving, others are struggling. Alan is enjoying his fish and is now a pro at fishing. Naomi, though low on fish, has a beautiful shelter. As long as she's not starving, she's fine. Naomi has encountered many bears and plans to take a smoke bath to mask her scent. I thought she'd strip down like Alice did, but she tricked me. Ruth had a breakdown while chopping wood. She's hot and cold. He's extremely bored and unsure how much longer he has to stay here. Pip feels a sore throat and urgently needs some squirrel broth to make tea. Can that really cure a sore throat? These foreigners will eat anything. Pip is a laid-back contestant. His shelter isn't great, but as long as he's not hungry after catching a fish, he won't fish again. Such contestants can last a long time. Ruth's trap was successful today, catching not one, but 2 squirrels. Her luck is incredible. She still has fish to eat, and now there's squirrel meat waiting. Currently, Ruth has plenty of meat, but her shelter isn't built yet, and the process requires a lot of energy. But he finds it really boring here. Naomi said he was sleeping very comfortably, but then he got a rude awakening. Footsteps were heard outside the shelter. A black bear was wandering nearby. On day 15, Naomi got up early to watch the sunrise, while Pip went to the shore to skip stones. He misses his kids terribly and cried again, saying he feels awful. The more he thinks about it, the worse he feels. He returned to the shelter, still crying, and decided to quit the competition to be with his family every day. Sometimes, honestly, it's so frustrating. If thinking about family makes you quit, then what's the point of coming here? I seriously suspect these are just filler contestants arranged by the show. Now, there are 7 contestants left, and they're all doing pretty well, except for Eva's shelter, which is a bit lacking. Everyone else is fine and improving their shelters. Alan might have eaten too much fish. His stomach suddenly felt uncomfortable. He sat on the ground like a lifeless pig, very worried it might get worse. Javad has been trying to fish but hasn't had any luck. He must be the unluckiest contestant. Right now, he's by the shore, thinking about his daughter. I can't help but feel sorry for this bald guy. Meanwhile, Ruth has plenty of meat, but isn't happy either. She misses her family a lot, and even hurt her hand making tools. Is she going to quit too? After bandaging her hand, her mood just kept getting worse.
I think you can only act tough for so long. I've literally got to just man the fuck up and deal with my emotions. What is wrong with me?
Can't wait to see what the contestants do next, eagerly awaiting the next episode update. While others on the survival show cry from hunger, he's in tears from the monotony of eating meat daily. As the contestant with the most fish is living a life worse than death. Why is that? It's now day 16. There are 7 people left. Naomi woke up feeling extremely cold, her fingers almost frozen. Winter is quietly arriving in Canada. Hot water is always ready. Tom woke up to find a layer of ice in the iron pot. The temperature is dropping rapidly. The competition is about to get harder. Frost is forming on plants, and Eva is feeling the chill. Birds are migrating overhead, signaling winter's approach. The grass fruits are drying out. They're no longer edible. Without fishing, there might not even be grass to eat. Alice noticed she's lost a lot of weight. After just 1 fish in 10 days, losing weight is inevitable. The net's been useless. Is it even functional? Tom came to the shore and found the water level had dropped significantly, driving the fish to deeper waters. This makes fishing much harder. Tom knows fish are a crucial food source, but now he has to think of other strategies to find food. Tom is very hungry now. He saw a grouse in the tree, but without a bow, he couldn't hunt it. Now he regrets not bringing a bow and arrow. Seems like Tom didn't think through his gear choices. He tried to snare the grouse instead. If he succeeds, the grouse would be too ashamed to stick around if Tom catches it. The hungry are trying everything for food, while the well-fed are going crazy. Alan and Ruth are the most comfortable. They have plenty of food stored. Javad saw a squirrel near his shelter, but he lacked a bow. Javad has been unable to hunt, living off frozen berries for 15 days. His shelter is also incomplete. He desperately needs fish for nutrition, but the net remains empty. With this net, catching fish is just wishful thinking. It's like he's daydreaming. The net hasn't caught anything, so is he planning to stop fishing? Why doesn't he spend more time trying to get food? He's been relying on luck to catch fish, while Ruth has a lot of fish stored. She's both fishing and hunting. She has the most food. If things continue like this, Ruth is the most likely to win. She enjoys a large piece of fish daily. While others struggle, she eats well. Afterward, she tidies up the entrance. In any case, the path to the shelter must be good. After eating, Ruth just does random things to pass the time. The entrance to the shelter is marked with her family's names. Once she's eaten, she starts thinking about food again and has a million things on her mind. Ruth feels sad looking at her family's photos. If you quit now, your wife will see you as a loser. But if you go back with $1 million, she'll think you're a superhero. Put your phone back in the bag. Missing your family won't help them. If you call, you lose. If you ditch the phone, you win. It's up to you. Naomi stays busy every day. She doesn't have time for those random thoughts. Being half prepared seems ideal. Naomi plans to warm up the shelter. She's building a stove in the shelter for heating. Ellis is also building a stove in her shelter, so it will be very warm in winter. Tom's goal today is to build a fireplace in his shelter, and he's gathered many stones from the shore. These stones have made his back ache. Everyone is preparing for winter, but Ivan doesn't plan to upgrade his shelter. He thinks if people can live on Mount Everest, he can live here. I really can't tell if he's genuinely foolish or just pretending. Anyway, he avoids chopping wood because it's too exhausting. With her spirits lifted, Ruth chose to hunt by the river for some excitement. Maybe this will excite her. Ruth, armed with her bow and arrow, is hunting prey, but the path is tough. Ivan is by the shore, desperately wishing for a fish. It's like he's trying to will one into his net with sheer thought. I don't get why he's just sitting there. If he's not planning to win, he should quit now. Does he think tears will make food appear? Ruth finally reached the riverbank. The water here is very fast. She's walking slowly along the shore. Mainly to relieve stress from the past few days, she always holds the satellite phone. Ruth's chances of quitting are high. One wants to quit after eating, while another acts crazy. Their mindsets are totally different. Right now, Alan seems the most likely to win. Tom predicts a chilly night ahead. Despite being hungry for 2 weeks, his spirits are surprisingly high. Other than the food issue, things are going well for him. He noticed numerous rats in the shelter and plans to trap them. Ruth keeps staring at a photo of his wife, missing his family more each day. It's now day 17, and the mornings are colder. Even the iron pot lid is frozen shut. Today, Tom made a mouse trap, hoping to catch some mice with it. Alice has also been hungry for days. Lately, he hasn't caught any fish. When he checked the fishing net, he saw something had bitten through the stick holding it. The net was pulled ashore, leaving him without food again. Is he really that terrible at fishing, relying on a damaged net? Ruth has all the supplies, but she's mentally exhausted and always on the verge of quitting. Hasn't he realized? If he quits now, his wife will think he was just having fun. But if he wins and goes home, his wife would see him as a hero. But he couldn't resist missing his family and ended up quitting the competition. I can't believe it. Someone who could have won just quit halfway. Meanwhile, those starving are still hanging on. There are 6 contestants left. After Ruth quit, Alan became the most likely to win. Alan didn't have a good start, but after catching some fish, he turned things around. Now, Alan is focused on finding more food in the shallow water. He's considering looking for easy prey in the shallow, icy water. Despite the freezing weather, Alan is determined to search. If he finds something, great. If he doesn't, he'll be freezing. Sadly, Alan had no luck. eBay came up empty-handed and injured his foot. By day 19, Tom's teeth are black from constant berry consumption. Naomi's been starving for ages. As time drags on, everyone else is battling hunger too, except Alan, who's just bored. On day 21, Alice has decided to endure hunger by lying still to conserve energy. Meanwhile, Tom's shelter is overrun with mice. Isn't he tempted at all? Winter days fly by. Javad checked his phone early. He's the unluckiest contestant. He's never managed to catch anything. Realizing he can't go on like this, Javad decides to quit. A contestant who had been starving for 23 days finally quit, leaving just 5 people. Naomi woke up crying early in the morning. Today was her son's birthday, and she couldn't be there. But is a birthday worth more than $1 million? Naomi quickly pulled herself together and got ready to work. Although Alan's shelter wasn't great, he had extra smoked fish, so he was living quite comfortably. Alan's shelter was surrounded by grouse. Sadly, he lacked a bow and arrow. Seeing the fat bird strut around, it's clear the contestants made bad gear choices. Alan planned to make a bird trap, but with such a trap, even if he caught one, it would likely escape. If he could catch a grouse, I'd eat the chicken. Naomi was very frustrated by the shore. He thought today was the worst day. He could endure hunger and fear, but he couldn't bear the separation from his son. Don't cry. Your son needs that $1 million more for his wedding. Not you coming home daily to nag him about homework. The producers tricked the contestants by letting them to bring a family photo, which brings longing. That's the trick to surviving alone in the wilderness. Every season, at least a few contestants quit because of the photos. Naomi made a frame for her photo. It did look quite nice. After returning to her shelter, Naomi hung up the photo and kept thinking about her child all day. Tom heard Uncle Bo's trap go off. Sure enough, a mouse was caught. This made Tom very happy. At last, he had some meat to eat. This mouse felt like $1 million. With everyone starving, having meat could help him survive a few more days. Soon, Tom was enjoying a delicious grilled skewer. The mouse tasted so good that he even ate the bones clean. Alan heard his trap trigger from his shelter and thought it might have caught a grouse. He went to check it out. Sure enough, the trap was empty. It's just winter, not the apocalypse. Why not try fishing in the river? At this moment, Alan also thought about quitting. He hadn't eaten anything for days. Ivar felt the same way. He desperately wanted to quit and go home for some roast chicken. He'd been missing his old friends so much it brought him to tears. In the end, Ivar couldn't take it anymore and decided to quit the competition too. This girl seemed to be on a holiday. By luck, she stumbled upon a roast duck meal. Now, only 4 contestants remain. Just then, the contestants got a message from the producers. What news could shock them so much? They found out they made it to the top 4, meaning only 4 contestants remain. This news gave them a big hope boost. Those considering quitting will likely keep going. The producers really know how to play the game. This one message will at least keep them hungry for another 10 days. Everyone is thrilled to be in the top 4. Even Naomi, who was ready to quit and head home, decided to stay. The producers are clearly pushing them to keep going. It looks like the producers are congratulating them, but they really want to push them to their limits. What will the contestants do next? Don't miss the next video update. When surviving in the wilderness, can a single fish really be worth $1 million? When everyone else is starving, he's here to tell you if a fish is worth $1 million. It's day 25, and there are 4 contestants left. In the last episode, the show informed the contestants that they made it to the final 4, which made them more motivated to face the upcoming challenges. For them, making it to the final 4 is a huge deal. Naomi never thought she'd make it this far. No matter how they're doing now, at this moment, they must be feeling incredibly confident and proud of themselves. How many contestants are left? This is the first time the show has made an exception. They congratulate the final 4, but it's really a push to their limits. Being so close to winning, everyone will fight hard, even if they're starving. Alice claims she's strong and smears soot on her face for motivation. Seriously, stop the theatrics. You haven't eaten for days, and you know how hungry you are. Where's this confidence coming from? Naomi checks the fishing traps. She's caught 1 fish in a week. As winter approaches, the water level drops, making it even harder to catch fish. If the nets aren't working, they'll have to try fishing with rod. Surprisingly, he managed to catch a fish, but its strong survival instinct left Naomi frustrated. Tom faced a similar issue with a fish escaping. Though the river is full of fish, they are incredibly hard to catch. Everyone is desperate to hunt, as food is crucial for survival. Hope is within reach, but it hinges on catching a fish. An hour later, Tom hooked another one, but it slipped away again. Only Alan is catching a decent amount of fish. The fish meat is so fatty that it's hard for him to digest, so he turned the leftovers into smoked meat. Smoked meat, everyone else was starving, but he was stuffed. Missing family. It's now day 26, and Alice sits in the shelter every day, waiting for a miracle. As the days go by, the contestants don't seem to be doing well, and Tom has stopped fishing. On day 28, Alan is also lying in the shelter feeling hungry. He feels weak and dizzy. Despite having a perfect shelter, the current situation makes him very uncomfortable. At this point, Alan is also thinking about going home. He decides to check the hunting traps to see if there's any catch. He set them up in the jungle jungle. 18 traps in the jungle. If he catches something, he'll stay. If not, he'll quit the competition. Alan checks many traps but finds nothing. He starts to get disappointed, and unfortunately, even the last trap is empty. Alan decides not to continue and calls to quit the competition, which leaves me speechless. He had the most food among the top 4 contestants. Even after finishing the fish, why didn't he keep fishing? If Alan, who was great at fishing, quit, the others, who were mostly lounging around, didn't stand much chance. Now, only 3 contestants remained. Naomi checked her fishing net daily, and this time, she caught a big fish. This catch was incredibly lucky and could help her win the season. She cut the fish into 2 pieces and fried them. This fish was crucial for Naomi. 1 full meal could sustain her for 10 days, meaning for the next 10 days. If she can outlast the other contestants, she will be the champion. Tom fished for 2 to 3 hours every day, but had no luck, so he had to forage in the jungle for food. Fishing was no longer an option. Tom had to rely on his hunting traps, but they yielded nothing. The traps seemed smaller, likely because the prey had escaped. If the trap had caught its head, it would have been a different story. After setting so many traps with no success, Tom was at a loss. If he couldn't catch fish or game, he would soon have to quit the competition. Alice was also struggling. Alice hasn't had any protein either, and her traps are empty. She's finding it hard to walk and feels disoriented, as everything looks the same. Alice is weak and exhausted. Even thinking is tough. She's unsure how much longer she can last. If she gets stuck here, she might starve. Luckily, her shelter is nearby, and a rope on a tree saved her in a critical moment. Now, Alice is surviving on sheer willpower, taking it 1 day at a time. It's day 29, and Naomi is doing the best. But after eating her fill, she starts to. When people are hungry, all they can think about is finding food, but once they're full, their minds start to wander. On day 30, Tom is still hanging in there. He fastened the last button on his pants today, is losing weight fast with nothing to eat. By day 31, Naomi's mood has taken a nosedive. She's feeling extremely depressed, likely from being in the wild for too long, and can't handle the terrifying nights anymore. Naomi believes she's depressed and decides to quit. I really admire her. She caught a fish, ate her fill, and then chose to go home. She had a perfect shelter. If Naomi caught a fish and still wanted to leave, what does that mean for Alice, who's starving next door? Would she win by default? Naomi's exit really shocked me. Now, only 2 starving contestants are left. It seems luck is on Tom's side. After Naomi left, he finally caught a big fish. This fish is like $1 million prize because Alice is almost starving to death. She hasn't caught any food and can't last much longer. Right now, Alice is surviving purely on starvation. If she wins, the show would go bankrupt. The luckiest contestant has quit. The competition started with Ruth, then it was Alan, followed by Naomi and Tom. On the 32nd day, waking up after a night's sleep, the woman felt terrible. She was already thinking about quitting because starving like this wasn't a solution. Even if such a survivor wins the championship in the end, it would be meaningless. Alice sat by the river, making her last struggle, but eventually chose to quit the competition. I had already predicted her exit. She was the only one in the world who hadn't successfully hunted. Quitting earlier and not torturing herself was also good for her. Alice's exit also destined Tom to become the champion. On the 34th day, Tom suddenly received a call from the show's producers. He was informed that he had won this season. "Hello, we wanted to let you know that you won." "What? No way. It feels like a dream." "Well done. How's it sinking in? I can't believe it just happened. I'm shocked. I just won 100 grand. Unbelievable."
Did that just happen? I'm shocked. I just won 100 grand. I can't believe it.
Ticket out of here. I'm in shock and overwhelmed. I was stronger academically at school, but was always labelled as stupid and a failure. This definitely boosts my confidence.
I've never been able to shake off those kind of labels, but this experience has been an amazing opportunity to prove myself.
Tom became the champion, and I didn't expect that one fish would make him the winner. I have to admit, his luck was unbelievable. The show alone has changed. It's no longer about the strongest or the most skilled surviving, but about who gets lucky. This season of Alone UK has come to an end, and it's my first time watching it. I watched an episode where 3 contestants quit. Ruth, in the end, was having a deep moment with her girlfriend on a hill. This experience profoundly changed her, and she now loves the outdoors even more. Ruth was the most skilled survivalist among the 10 contestants this season. One contestant, who hunted with a bow and arrow, caught a lot of squirrels and enjoyed a barbecue feast. He also caught the most fish among all the contestants. However, after foraging for berries and eating too much, he started missing his family more and more. In the end, He quit because he was too eager to go home and be with his girlfriend. I thought he had the best chance of winning, but he couldn't resist the lure of love. After Eva quit, she changed a lot. She went home and quit her 9-to-5 job. I was speechless. How do you go camping and come back jobless? And you're 24 and divorced. How do you manage with 4 kids? Eva got lucky catching a duck, enjoyed a roast duck meal, and then quit. Maybe her 10 days in the wild will help her teach her kids to endure hunger, especially now that she's jobless. Alan, after returning home, took his wife and kids to live in the wild and started vlogging their life. His survival skills weren't as strong as Rose's. He mainly fished and, with some luck, caught quite a few fish. But he also quit the competition, which was a pity because winning could have eased a lot of burdens for his family. Naomi lives in a big city and is a bona fide rich girl. She quit the competition because she missed her son. At first, I thought Naomi was just a pretty face, but she surprised me by surviving until 3rd place. She built a great shelter and caught plenty of fish to eat. She was the only one who really impressed me. As for Alice, there's not much to say about her. She couldn't hunt or build a shelter. All she did was sleep and starve. Tom, on the other hand, is living it up. He moved to Portugal with his wife and son, having become a millionaire. Now, he's just enjoying life. If you won the grand prize, what would you do with it? Feel free to share in the comments.